So here we are at the front door entrance to the Stoner house, and we are standing in the original part of the house, which dates to 1750. Now that would include everything from this wall over on the first floor only. This was a typical medieval Germanic style house where you had just a few rooms. You had the entry hall, the parlor, the kitchen, and the bedroom. And that was it. That was a typical Germanic style house. So while we're here, I wanted to point out a couple things. We have the original wood floors in the house, and if you notice, there is a cut in the wood here, and we know that there used to be a stairway that came up from the basement. Now when we did the archaeological dig, we found that the entrance to the basement was a main entrance for the family to come in, because the farmers would come in with dirty boots and different things, and they'd have things in the basement. They'd enter down there. So the archaeological dig, we took the floorboards off of the porch and we went down 9 feet, and we found the actual pathway, stone pathway they had, and the entrance door. So we know at one time the basement wasn't fully exposed, at least in the front part. We think it might have been partially underground in the back part because of the shape of the windows and how high they are on the back of the house. So we learned many wonderful things from doing the archaeological dig. One of the things we found was an Indian arrowhead, which dates back to 10,000 BC. So that not only makes this a historic property, but a deemed a prehistoric property, which is exciting. So coming back to this hallway, I wanted to point out that this is a land patent from Thomas and Richard Penn, who were sons of William Penn. And the calligraphy on this and the artistic ability and everything they do is just fantastic. This was a land patent for a property just beyond the park, up here this way. And Thomas and Richard Penn actually deeded the land patent for this property, and 300 acres was given to Jacob Slough, and he came here, and we think in 1947, and built a log cabin which used to adjoin to this original wall.
Can you, the date there, 1940s?
1747.
Right, great.
Yes. And so when he came, he built first a vaulted basement, which is an arching basement that controls the levels of coolness. They'd hang their meats higher, they'd put their vegetables down on the dirt floor and so forth, and it would preserve the food. That's a very important historical element to this house. So he built that, and the way they did that is they built a mound of dirt in the shape. Then they created the walls, which were some kind of plaster and horsehair and all of that was done. And then they dug it out, and that's what made the vaulted, use. So they built that, and then they built a log cabin, because wood was a ready resource. They could use that right away to build shelter. And then as they farmed the land, they would collect the field stones. When they had enough, then they would build a stone house. And that's exactly what happened here. After the log cabin was built, it was then sold to Jacob Wilhelm. And he is the one who built the stone part, the original stone part of this house. And so he built that, and there's many dates and everything in the history of the Stoner house, which we have a handout with that. But let me just go over a couple other things. We like to say that this is a good, typical example of the evolution of a farmhouse. The original house is built and then add-ons are made. And typically, the first add-on is for a larger kitchen, because that's where the family gathers. And that's exactly what happened in the room to my right. And we'll go over that a little bit as part of our tour. Then, as the family grew, then they needed more bedrooms because there were many, many children. And also, it became a multi-generation home, you know, so they had the grandparents, even aunts and uncles we know lived here. And also the workers on the farm, sometimes the farmhand, which the little room at the top of the stairs, we know that at one time a farmhand lived there.
Okay.
So I also wanted to point out that this is an album of the history of when we were preserving the house, things you might like to look at. We also have a book, Then and Now, which has some interesting photos around Manheim Township that shows some of the old settings, but then we have pictures of what they look like now. One of the interesting things, I think, is the toll houses. Now, this was a toll house.
New Holland.
Yeah, exactly. So every north and south road was called a pike, Fruitville Pike, Manheim Pike. And on those roads, you were charged for traveling north or south, which is unbelievable today. But at the cost of the turnpike, you know, we pay it anyway. But anyway, so the toll houses were always located right up on the edge of the road. Now, we do have a toll house here in Manheim Township where 501 and Delp Road meet, where the Presbyterian Church is on the corner. If you look directly across the street, there's a house that's very close to the road, and that was a toll house at one time. That was a toll house. Yeah. So let's move on into the living, I should say, the parlor, and tell you a little bit about that.
Before I forget, can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
Both this document and this document, we should have under some kind of protective glass. Regular glass will allow it to decay or allow it to fade
Yes, you're right.
or change the lights, one or the other,
Yeah.
but it is a preservation.
Okay, UV
Yes.
protective glass.
Yeah. I do know that that is protective glass. Clark
Okay.
has had it framed, and he told me that.
Okay.
This one was given to us, and we just try and keep it in the dark area here.
Okay,
But-
gotcha.
But you're right, it should be better preserved.
It's like everything
Yeah.
else.
Nope.
Okay, we have now entered the parlor, which is the equivalent of a formal living room. And this is where guests were greeted when they arrived, and at night the family might sit in here together. We have interesting things in here, one of which is the Hubley toy collection. I should say cast iron collection, because it's more than toys. The Hubley Company was located in Manheim Township. They went out of business in the 70s, but they asked if we wanted what they had left in the way of molds and so forth, and we said of course, because it was a famous company. So as you see, the elephant molds is typical of what would make this, which is a bag. So they were known for making toy cars and trucks, but also really decorative items like this sleigh with the horse. And this was a recent donation given to us when I was in Florida. I saw it in an antique shop, and the guy was wonderful. He actually donated it to us. So also they were probably most well known for their cap guns. And that's what you see here. The Hubley Chief single shot cap pistol was only 50 cents, and it was the dream of every little boy to have one of those. And my mother actually made the one in the front. She worked at the company, and so she kept one. And so that's the Hubley toy exhibit. This is the room that we say has revolving exhibits. So this is where we'd like to bring more and more different exhibits, traveling exhibits, if you will. Now, our most prized possession is this piece here, which is called a shrine. And this would have been the most prized possession who owned it at, way back when. But this is a piece that was called a clothing cover. And this would sit in the parlor, and it was made in 3 pieces so that it could be relocated if necessary. So the top part is removable, the middle section is removable, and the lower base can be moved. So that is a beautiful piece donated to us by Clark Hess. Clark Hess told us the story that he has had his eye on this piece for over 30 years. He said a woman owned it, or bought it way back at the price of $45,000. But as the years have passed and antiques have devalued a lot, well, when she passed away, Clark was first in line, and he purchased this for $15,000, and he donated it to us because he felt it was an important piece of history for us to show. So that's our prized possession, to say the least. And this is an important piece in our collection. This is the Martyr's Mirror, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a very important book that is in almost every Amish or Mennonite home. And what that book is, and this is a very antique book from around the 1600s, it's a compilation of 4,000 Christians that were martyred from the time of Jesus up till the 1600s. I have a little description in here. But this is amazing stories, terrible stories in a lot of cases, of what they suffered and died. And there's also songs, other stories, but this edition that you see here is in German. So originally it was in German, and then it was translated into English to try and convince Americans to also, realize what Christians have sacrificed. But this one was actually printed in Ephrata, this German version. Now, as a side note, I went online and I'm getting the English version because it's fascinating. So this is another important piece that we have here in the museum, because the families who lived here were Mennonite. The Stoner family, who lived here most of the 1800s, was a Mennonite family, and I'm descended from them. My great-grandmother was born in this house. And so it's very important to me that the house be maintained as the Stoner homestead. And so anyway, that's an important thing. You may notice over here, this is a modern convenience back in the 1800s, and this is a washing machine. And I am so grateful to have modern conveniences now. I can't imagine doing wash that way.
You could be out beating on the rock in the stream.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go into the community room. Now this room is a large room because at one time there used to be a wall right here, as you can see in the seaming of the floor and on this wall over here. So in the original house, this was the kitchen and that was the bedroom.
Wow.
And in here, we took up the floorboards and we found the foundation of a hearth. So there was a fireplace here at one time.
That's cool.
And in fact, there was a hole through the wall, a chute that would have gone from the fireplace and put the heat into the parlor. So unfortunately, it's no longer here today, but because it's been removed, we're able to have this nice large room. And the house is available to rent for only $50 an hour, and you can use any part of the first floor, the porch, and the patio. So this allows for great gatherings here. And then we also have the beverage bar available with lots of plugs for crock pots and so forth. And we have a microwave and a refrigerator to help support that. So this room is flexible. We do anything from bridal showers to memorials to business meetings to just about any gathering you can imagine. And people like it because of the ambiance of being in a historic house. That feels cozier. It doesn't feel as, commercial, let's put it that way. And Here we have the map of 1863. This is a wonderful map that shows us some of the important buildings and farms that were here in Manheim Township. And we will have a booklet to describe all those wonderful things by Benton. So that's our community room. On the wall, you'll see the supporters who support us through the preservation of the house. We appreciate it. You support those people because they were very good to us. Okay.
Ice cream or butter?
I don't know. Well, sometimes we have mystery objects that we're not exactly sure what they use it for, but that seems to be more of a butter scoop.
Okay.
So anyway, well, that's it for the community room. Let's move into the museum room.